Another game from the Viva la Emperor series, La Bataille de Hanau. Um, Technically, if I was reasonable, I'd be doing Leipzig first. This is a battle that happens on the retreat from Leipzig. We have Austrian forces which were being watched by Bavarian French allies, and then Bavaria switches sides. And so the Austro-Bavarians are going to be set up running over here. Looks like it's going to start with a pretty close battle. The French are right here. Now this is the French Guard for the most part. There might be some not. Yeah, Victor's got a couple of units from other corps under his command back here. And we've got Marmont coming in with 3rd and 6th Corps units as well later in the battle. And the goal for the French is to kind of break through. However, this is weird because it's a 2-day battle that they decided to present as 2 different scenarios, and there's no linked scenario. And I'm going to look at it and see if I can figure out a way to link them, but I don't think I want to do that after my experience with trying to link Jena and Auerstadt, even though there were scenarios that do link them and rules to link them. The Auerstadt scenario didn't work because there was a pre-battle scenario, like an early part of the battle, and then the main part of the battle, and they did not work together. There was no means to link them, and the rules that applied to the early part of the battle, if used for the victory conditions, didn't work to get you through the second part. I don't know. Maybe I will try, but I'll probably have to make things up if I do, because overnight recovery of stragglers and stuff like that isn't really addressed. I could try to pull out like the Waterloo rules or the Leipzig rules if that's a multiple day battle. I don't know. Again, I don't know the scale of the Leipzig thing at all. Oh, look, tiny hexes. What the hell? Do all Leipzig games need tiny hexes? Yeah, 10 maps. 6-day campaign game. Okay. Yeah, so that's going to be a hell of a monster. And I want to get another game in the series under my belt. This is before I get to the Leipzig one. Jesus. I thought it was only 9 maps. No, that's right. I knew it was bigger than my my other game. The huge hexes that this system has make this kind of a weird situation. I'm wondering if there are actually smaller hexes for Leipzig, which would make life, and smaller pieces, that would make life kind of interesting, although I might need my new glasses for that. I got new glasses. My prescription's exactly the same, except for my old person eyes, which slightly increased, and that explains some of the difficulty I'm having with reading stuff. But only slightly, so. I have not set up yet. This is basically the setup instructions. And the reason I wanted this was to get an idea of, should I be deploying in column? Am I, how far am I from the enemy in any given location? How do I want the Austrians to set up? They have to set up first, and understanding where the French are, and damn, they're close, is important. I'll come back after I set up, talk about the special rules for the scenario, maybe take a little look to see, once again, if there's anything I can think of that'll allow me to link them. The real problem has to do with the casualties that will be taken during the first day. Some of them should be recovered overnight. And there are rules for recovery in the system, but I don't know if those rules are... So those rules are not what I can follow. First of all, I don't have the turns, but also there are post-battle, nighttime rules for recovery or something like that in both Waterloo and Leipzig, and I may have to dig those out and see them. Leipzig's an earlier game by far. This is one of the Legion ones. They're still Pratt's an edition, but they're published by Legion, and the others with the cleaner, whiter maps, I think, were the Prattson ones. I don't know which ones I like better. I think I like the Prattson edition the best out of the whole series. These are a little less disturbing color-wise than the old Azure Wish ones. Those had a garishness to them. But these are Charlie Kibler maps. They kind of remind me of Rick Barber in a way. Not quite, but all these individual trees and everything, that's just kind of weird to me. Okay. One of my questions, and give a quick sneak peek of the maps for Leipzig. They're pretty. I think I like them better. I wonder who did these. Oh, boy. Kibler's a big name. I don't know if he did. I don't see artist. There are credits. It's a big battle, man. Yeah. One of the biggest. We got research design, play testing. I'm almost going to guess that the author, Didier Roy, drew the maps. I actually kind of like these better. More distinguished color as to, hey, this is this, not, I don't know. I don't know. And there's a cleanness to them by not being glossy, that the paleness just looks good on. I think the Prattson edition maps were probably the best. And tons of counters. But the reason I came back without having set up yet was there are rules for the night rolls in here. Every night in that battle, in that game, if you don't move all night, you can recover 1 step of losses per unit. Given that this is like 6:30 to probably the next morning, I'm going to say there's probably time between the 2 rounds for every unit to just recover 1 step, which you wouldn't be able to do under the normal rules for recovery. Normal rules of recovery are you sit alone for a turn, you don't do anything, you're not being fired on or whatever, and you have a leader with you. And there aren't a whole lot of leaders, and you get 1 step back. So I'm tempted to try to play the results of one battle, of the first day of battle affecting the second day. Not all the counters are used in the first day of battle. There's a bunch more French coming to help punch their way through for that second day. There's also a different, another Austrian leader. We have Fresnel, who may or may not be replacing Hanau. All right, well, I'll get to actually setting up, and then I'll tell some more of the historical and such not about this. I don't remember if this one came before or after. I think this one came before the 3 battles in Germany one, which we were not incredibly thrilled with. Still haven't set up. I browsed the entry on BGG, did some spamming over on Facebook and whatnot, but yeah, let's talk about inconsequentials. But anyway, there was a fun fact I found, which is that this series predates the Azure Wish games that I thought were the beginning of it. Another French company DDRI did a couple of them. This is a re-implementation of an original game on Hanau. And our stat also was put out by that company. It starts with an S. I can't remember it. It's not Socrates, but it looks kind of like it. But I was pretty impressed. Pretty impressed to find those. Those date back into the mid '80s. So this is an old system. This is. I don't know, what condition those rules were in. This could have just been a very simple, sort of lighter, tactical Napoleonic game originally, and maybe the written orders and stuff came later. Or maybe they were available all the way back in those days, at least as a very loose option. And that would put it, to about the era at which CWB was sort of being formed. And that would impress me a lot if the written orders were already being formulated at that point. I would guess, given how many revisions the rules have gone through and how lightly written they are. I was looking at some of the comments, and there's a reason. So like this, on the road south of... This game is actually better than most because it has these letters and tells you to set things up near the letters. But on the road, south of the Kinzig River, at the level of the Lamboy Bridge, well, everything's the same level. What do they mean? I think they mean here. There's another one that's like it here at the level of the letter G on the road. And this is at the level of the Lamboy Bridge, these units. And it's just like, whoa. Again, I think it's sort of the language situation. It's not his first language, and sometimes it's hard to put things in quite the right way. But somebody was just like, wow, I took one look at the first bullet point in the specific roles, and I was going to rate it a 1 based on that because I couldn't figure out where to set up. The other thing that I've seen is a lot of comments that this is just like not at all balanced. What that means, I'm not sure, because the French should be pretty fucking potent. But the victory conditions, someone else was complaining about the victory conditions. Some people were just complaining about balance without talking about it much. And there aren't a lot of comments. Some people, and we're maybe talking about like 2 and 1 here as these sums. Some people were talking about something that I saw, I think, for the second scenario, which is basically that the Austrians can slip a unit into a given hex at the end of the game, and they kind of automatically win if they do that. So, that's actually discussed in the rules. Let me start setting up for real this time, and I'll come back with the specifics. Okay, after almost a week's delay, I went to the coast I had something to do on Monday. I think I got a little bit done then on the game, but I had to go to the bank and deal with something. On Tuesday, I went out to the coast, and that wiped me out. I fell asleep as soon as I got home, and which wasn't all that late. Slept right through till the morning, and then I was still too. I don't know, if I do anything serious, it screws up my next day, whatever it is, And I was out dealing with someone, by choice, but on a hike with someone, and that much interpersonal action makes it difficult for me to want to do anything at all. I might, and especially if I have to deal with the camera. So here we are now on Thursday, and I finally wrote my starting orders. I'll hit them in a bit. But first, I want to go over the special rules for this scenario. So there are 2 scenarios here. This is for the first sort of, the guard is coming in, and is surprised to find the Bavarians on the other side. They set the lines of communication, Leipzig, Frankfurt. Well, the Allies also, the other three routes, so not just Frankfurt, but this and this are also lines of communication, so I can fall back on any of those. I think I go towards the closest one. You could really cheat the game otherwise. The river, this river located in the south, this is impassable. The Kinzig River, though, is somewhat less problematic. However, it is still difficult to cross. You have to basically spend a full turn to cross it, and you can't retreat across it. Artillery can't cross it, except at the bridges. Melee is not allowed to cross it. And the bridges on this river count as streams. Apparently the river is heavily flooded. Hanau itself has an elevation level bonus, which you can kind of see there. It also has some old walls, which give it an additional, cost an additional 2 movement points and reduce melees going up by 1, except at the doors. There's 1, 2, 3 doors. They call them gates in one place and doors elsewhere. Passing through these doors, I like that. On the first turn, the units south of the Kinzig River cannot move. They still can have orders. We'll get to that in a bit. Leaders, the basic rules apply here. Doesn't say whether or not you're allowed to use more advanced rules. I am, of course. I don't understand, like, the basic rules for leaders are that they don't exist. So I don't understand what's being stated there. We'll get to some of those kind of criticisms a little later. I assume they mean you can use all the optional rules if you want, because in the basic rules of the game, the leaders mean nothing. If Napoleon's killed, the game ends immediately with victory to the Allied player. Okay, army morale. Now, if you remember, in the last set, in Jena and Auerstadt, army morale seemed to have been based on units. Here it's not. Here it's got to be based on steps. Rate of losses is 70 for the French and 60 steps for the Allies. Just, you know, it's as though there's like no real consistency. I don't know. Whatever. The artillery of the Old Guard, there's a couple 3-step artillery there. They give the rules for how they get reduced. Bavarian morale in the Guard. If the Bavarians make a morale test after fire or melee with one of the first 4 numerical units, Grenadiers of the Old Guard, they get an additional -2 penalty to their morale check because they fear the Guard. All right, and the victory conditions, well, we get some numerical conditions to begin with, which is every 30 points you get a level of victory. Well, if you're exactly even, both sides get a marginal victory, it appears. I don't know. Okay, so the French get 30 points for clearing north of the Kinzig. And the Austrians move second, so if they can set up a unit to slip across, they take that 30 points away automatically. And that's one of the problems with this particular scenario. There's these slip a unit in type issues all over the place. They get a half point for each step of Allies they kill, 1 point for each step of French losses that leave towards Frankfurt, and 10 points per enemy leader eliminated. Okay. The Allies get a point for each French step except for each guard unit. Now, guard is not defined here, unlike back here where they're talking about the grenadiers of the old guard. They call it the infantry of the old guard, but we've got other things like fusiliers and velites. What? But yeah, I mean the core infantry. They define that nicely there. Here they just say each guard unit, 2 points for every step. Oh no, they do define it. It's gold stripes. What do gold stripes mean? Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's this color, but I don't know if it's this color. It's a painful thing. I wish they were better indicated by the numbers or something. Each Allied unit that leaves, no, if an Allied unit runs away from Frankfurt, that's worth 20 points to the Austrians. A unit anywhere on the hex on the road from Leipzig to Frankfurt, this main road here, is worth 20 more points. And each French chef eliminated is worth 10 points. We don't have the supply rules to that detail. I'm assuming they need a meter. The morale of the guard units does not decrease with losses. There's no colors on here. So that may be a hint of what the guard counts as, although Sebastiani is not guard, I'm assuming, and the reserve artillery are not guard. The portraits of the generals aren't right. Okay, Hanau was not the known corps commander, but another general from the same family. You can use him or not, giving an advantage to the Austro-Bavarian. I don't know what to do. You know, he's set up here. If you take him out, I guess Fresnel is in command of all of this because they combine as the reserve. If you don't take him out, I think he's allowed to operate somewhat independently. Under the lower command levels of the game, it's not that big a deal. He's a good rally unit. Under the higher command levels, it becomes more problematic. What capabilities does he have? I like the flexibility because he's able to cross into the woods. And I'm assuming he was mentioned because he did things in the battle that were of some importance, like leading an independent force. I'm going to leave him in mainly for that command capability. I don't really care that much about the rally capability, although that could be valuable too. But also, here's the thing. It doesn't clearly define who's Fresnel and who's Hanau, which to me means Hanau can kind of grab what he likes out of Fresnel. But that brings us to some of the problems. In the setup, some of the other problems. Units are not necessarily set up with the rest of their command. In particular, the French have built a massed battery. Maybe Druitt can command it all. Maybe he can release units out. I would say once he's released units out, there's no rules for mass batteries in the system. And it's not covered specifically here to try to handle it. But what I'm thinking is, once he releases a unit back to its command, he can't grab it back. I don't know. And then there's the problem of, I have no idea how this is going to link to the October 31st, because here's the thing. The French get victory points for running to Frankfurt in this scenario. That will hurt their chances in this next scenario. It may have to just play each scenario as a standalone, which is really, really disturbing. It's like the Jena-Auerstadt situation. It's like the Auerstadt alone, where the early morning scenario can't really be included in the full Auerstadt battle. it's as if there was no real attempt to try to create a smooth transition that would allow a multi-day battle in this case, or an hour stat, one that included the morning and the afternoon or whatever. It just is, it feels so fucking sloppy to me. It feels, I don't know. It just feels like these more recent ones, and I don't remember the Spain one, whether or not that one disappointed me. I know that I've been happier with everything before Legion took it on. I don't remember this, but the 3 battles in Germany was really crappy, and this one is leaving me with that same kind of crappy taste. I just feel like the earlier ones, a little bit more effort was made to get something out the door that was a little bit polished. Yes, this rule book is in as good a shape as it ever was, I guess. I don't know. There may have been more problems added to it. But the individual scenarios are just not that much fun. And I remember there were some issues with the Return of the Emperor, wherever up there, where there were some things that didn't fit together quite well. But, you know, that really made an attempt to make the 4-mapper work. Leipzig has a grand campaign. I feel like the 2 Underground made as strong a showing, if not better, than the AWE ones. But I'm beginning to question whether I want to keep picking up games of this series, because it just feels like there's not a dedication to try to make a polished game, you know. Not out of the base system. The base system's okay, but out of the scenarios, it just feels like an inattention. Well, I dragged my feet up here to play and actually move some pieces, because I couldn't do anything yesterday in terms of this. I could not motivate myself, and it's been a while, and there's no good reason. I mean, it's a simple system that I'm used to playing right now. There shouldn't be anything in the way of getting me moving some pieces. I am just so unwilling. And, you know, I had a fire started, I had coffee, I had all the things I should have wanted to be up here. Today I have none of those because I go dancing tonight, but screw it, I moved some pieces. French are shifting their whole force over. They've got a smaller but better force, so they're going for an outflank of the artillery over here. Their goal is to clear north of the river, supposedly. But the way the victory conditions are set up, the Austrians can like hide one little unit back here and jump across the river and take those points away. So they're just not well thought out. Then as I conducted Austrian fire, the one bright spot in this, I found I have white speckled dice. I should have known I did. These were from Revolution Francais. For whatever reason, I've got to use the AWE style dice with these games, especially with these maps, because they're garish in the same sort of way, unlike the Grognard edition ones, which have an understated beauty to them. But then I dissolved one cav unit from Nansudi, and I took a hit on artillery. I'm playing the optional rules just like I usually do, as I did for Jena and Auerstadt, where artillery is slower to be hit. And I noticed something funny. Hey, this is guard artillery. It's only got 2 steps. Over here, it's got 3 steps. There's a rule about it having 3 steps. Apparently, again, there's a sloppiness here. There should be a 3rd step on this sheet. I understand why maybe the counter can't represent all 3 steps, but the sheet of paper should have 3 steps for the artillery. It's printed on the counters. There's no easy way to handle it as there normally would be. No, flipping it just changes formation. Yeah, I have no idea why that kind of fuck up is in place, but I'm going to have to draw an additional step on Recurring problems I had when dealing, certainly with this edition, and again, I should use my other glasses, but I had these cav moving along, and the numbers here, and if we zoom in really close, we can see it's a 10. But with my eyes, this side of the counter, I was thinking that was a 20 or a 30. But by flipping it over, it's really easy to tell. I don't know why the back side of these counters is essentially, it's invisible to see the unit ID, but that is the one number that's really important for finding anything play-wise over on this sheet and for setup and such like that. There are other things that are a lot less important, like the actual unit designation, which, you know, if you look that sucker up, it doesn't even match what's here. This is like GC for Cavalry de la Garde, and then J Guard for Jeune Garde. It's just, you know, the only reasonable way to get a match is the number, because there's abbreviations on the counters and whatnot that aren't covered on the sheets. And if you got to look things up, you want them to be matches. At the end of the first turn, the Bavarian artillery managed to, as I noted before, shoot up the cav a little bit. More damage was done. We're basically just mowing them down as they march forward. But the counter battery fire has been somewhat successful, suppressing some of the fire. It's really hard to move in the face of artillery. Maybe I should have sat back and done counter battery fire for a while, because I have the numerical advantage, especially with some of the Bavarian artillery placed over here. I don't tend to think about things like that. I'm like, oh, get everything moving. Well, here's why you don't. Side of things, I've got the guard infantry moving up, but they're slogging through the woods, not a trivial task. The cav I pulled back a little bit, set up some more artillery over here on the flank, and I'm just using that mass battery to get rid of the Bavarian guns. They're pretty heavily hammered, actually. And taking some pot shots at this cav that decided to stick its nose out for whatever reason. Figured might as well get the kills on that as well. We're in a kind of a problematic situation, because the initial orders were to defend for the Bavarians, and they're not flexible the way they would be under the basic rules. So I had to send Reed in the last turn over to take command of these guys. These guys actually have orders that I can cope with. Cav, on the other hand, is very loose, so I was able to pull back my cav without the orders, but I do have a real weakness, which is that MacDonald has orders to go cutting across here, right across the front, and I may have to make an initiative roll to prevent him from doing that. Either that, or, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send Nappy down there to talk to him next turn, just because it takes a turn to get through the delays, and the old guard units, they're doing more or less what I want them to. I don't know why I was sending Napoleon up there to go chat with them. He doesn't have a lot of people to talk to. He could talk to Druitt with the guns, who's doing fine. The cav leaders, they're on their own, they're fine. So basically my choices are Victor and MacDonald. And the problem I have is Victor has orders to wait until Friant's guard start hitting. It's still not optimal, but basically I want to have MacDonald slow down a little bit. The whole problem to this stuff is going to be able to wheel and screw with my plans, but it looks like I'm just dissolving that artillery, and the cav on its own can't stand at that distance against artillery. It could go charge the guns. Anyway, that'll put us over to the Austrian side of the turn. And I guess what we do is, can do that to double indicate. I forgot when I started to handle the complexity of the fatigue option. So I tried to estimate, and I think I got it right. But yeah, that's gonna slow down the movement of the forces a little bit, which is kind of neat. However, this mass battery has just dissolved the Bavarian artillery and scared the cav away, starting to plunk this stuff away. That's just a terrifying force. I mean, the Bavarians can't be near that. I don't know if I need infantry at all. I just, shift my artillery around to start flanking this shit, and this battle's over, man. Wow. Anyway, we'll shift into turn 3. And that's probably it for today. I lied and came back to squeeze out at least one more turn. And on the French half of the turn, new orders to MacDonald, slow him down. Pretty much waiting everywhere for Friant to come into play. But the biggie, and this is only happening because Friant wasn't set up anywhere near the line of battle, and it's taking him so long to get into engagement. But I'm demonstrating essentially that massive firepower of the massed batteries, able to just really devastate a force that's not got orders to advance. You can't do much against artillery if you're sitting there just taking it. And in this period, at those ranges, it's really effective. And, what are my choices? I could launch my cav at it. That's pretty much what I have here. I would probably slaughter the cav. On the other hand, and the cav is kind of all I have over here. This whole flank, Napoleon's going to gain his initial goal just through the artillery, the way things are working. So I don't really know what to do. Like, the infantry is somewhat powerful against cav because it can fling itself into square, so, but if it fails to do so, like the guard's going to fail, then the cav that's back here can really do a number on the infantry. Can it just charge the guns a la Ney? Yeah, I guess, and maybe that's all I got left. Maybe I should have started with that, because I was not expecting to be this devastated by artillery creeping forward. I thought the reduced firepower, etc., due to the range, would be potent. It is comparatively, but here's the thing. Those guns have firepower equal to infantry, at the range that I'm at. And if I can mass a couple of them together, I'm able to get on the 6 or 7 chart and just do better firepower than I would expect exchanging fire from regular units. The big defense for it was the Bavarians had some artillery here, but it didn't hold up. It took shots, it took damage quicker because it was less artillery, and it's been driven away. Try to figure out what the hell to do with my Austrians and Bavarians. And I did not send De Reed somewhere to give orders. I don't think I really need to. What I have to look at here is, like, Splenny here has this whole force. Now, I have a bunch of units. This is up to 13, which means almost all of this is cav. This weird militia thing is the one exception that I think I found. It's kind of hard finding a command in this game, in this particular scenario, because Splenny has like mixed Bavarian and Austrian units, and that just feels very like pre-Napoleonic to me to have these broad mixtures within a division or whatever. And then we should start seeing these move, and they're going to cause some problems, there's no question. Painful things, although it's weird. This command here under Splenny is, like I said, almost all cav. There's an artillery that is dead, or some artillery that's dead. I've lost 2 out of 3 artillery pieces. One of them's fallen back. The rest is cav, and then there's 1 infantry. And by being a mixed command, it uses normal, I guess, fatigue rules, which means as long as I don't move this guy, I'm, not going to accumulate fatigue. Whereas if it was an all cavalry command, then the cav would start causing fatigue losses instead. I don't know what to do with the Druid's force. That's just so alien. Because artillery doesn't cause fatigue losses when it moves. But anyway, here's the other thing though. If this was all cav, it would be free to operate independently. It wouldn't need orders. Since it's not, since there's this stupid infantry unit in it, and I don't know if this lasts even if I get that infantry unit killed, and it's a fucking like militia unit or something, it has to have orders to do something. So I can't just fall back or anything like that I'd want to do without at least making an initiative check. And then similarly with Druid, I probably shouldn't even be inching these guns forward the way I am. He kind of doesn't have any orders. I've been treating him kind of like a cav force, but, he really ought to have orders to do something if he's going to be moving his guns. Is so sparse in the roles, right? That you have to extend and make things up and whatever. So like the artillery, there's nothing specific about artillery, so you figure they follow the normal rules, but maybe they shouldn't, I don't know. Certainly they're not cav. If anything, they're less mobile than infantry, so I don't feel comfortable moving them much. Although, on the other hand, creeping forward 1 hex at a time doesn't feel like a massive assault. What I learned in my last game, it's pretty clear that except for artillery, 0 firepower doesn't mean anything good. In artillery, it's just a special bonus, it's range attenuation. That's the only thing that doesn't make it down below the 1 table. So in forests, infantry value is -1. Now infantry's we've done some of the defensive fire so far for the French. We're moving down to where they're being attacked over here. Infantry fire is going to be based on their open formation or loose formation or whatever it is value, which is the same as column, I guess. It's on the same side, so it should use the same value. So it's a 2 at -1 for being in the, the firer in a forest is general order with a fire value of 1, no matter what their column value was. The target being in the forest causes a -1, which means this firing on this is at 0. However, combined fire of 2 of these against one of these is at 1. On the other hand, therefore, if I can either fire at this at 1 or at this at 1. I would rather fire at this at 1 because it's got a heavier fire value. If I can force a morale check on that, it drives it away. And remember, facing doesn't matter in general order. I just kind of put it to help remind me which way I'm going. Well, that's very different from how I used to have it. How I used to have it was units would have a minimum fire of 1, so you'd see a lot of plinking through the woods. Now it's just assumed that the woods cover is too much unless you've got them surrounded or something in the woods. So there you have it. Which means I will take this shot at 1. This is kind of a big deal. Okay, it didn't happen. And now the Austrians get to shoot back. And they're going to actually be able to consolidate reasonable fire against this. Because it's not each firer who's reduced by 1 for the defensive value. It's the entire firing collection. So the fact that I have them surrounded means that I can actually get a good value on them. Possible to kill Napoleon under this. I would have had to get 2 hits to have a check for it. But, that could be the war right there. But yeah, not a whole hell of a lot happened. The Austrians didn't have a lot of firepower coming back artillery-wise just here, and then this mass situation here, which is going to skew with Napoleon's plans. His plans were to swing around this way. Well, now he's defending himself locked in there, and I don't even know if I can follow orders when I'm, pinned under fire the way I am. Do I have to withdraw? I guess. This is the kind of place where orders writing gets kind of complex, because you can make a pretty good argument for, yeah, well, they don't want to pull out of their situation. They're not in a position where they can reasonably, la, la, la. Then I got all kind of options like running cav into the woods, see what that does. It's not pleasant, but it does cause additional losses to the infantry because they're not in square. So things are turning up into an interesting little fight. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot in this box. You're getting one map, 2 scenarios to play on that map that don't link together even though they're on consecutive days, and not a lot of pieces. It doesn't feel like something that should have been put in a box alone. Now, I'll grant to you, the old Azure Wish ones, Friedland and Ekmal, are similar. Little battles that you fight singly. It just doesn't feel like this is where Legion has been going. The Grognard's publications were big battles, which, given the hex size, take a lot of maps. Big important battles. The way Legion's been going has been little poorly developed battles that, at least they can cram a few in a box, which could be useful. We had 4 battles in the Spanish box, 3 in the German, but now 1 in this, and it just feels like it should be, set in sort of a retreat through Germany box or something. I don't know. After a lost weekend, Friday I go dancing. Saturday, normally recovery day. I felt okay, but spent the whole damn day wasting it watching videos, basically. And then Sunday, got myself into one of these stupid fucking games on the computer that, I don't know. It took a lot longer than I thought it would. I'm still not done with it. And so I come up here thinking, I'll squeeze in one in the early morning hours before work. But I gotta tell you, the game requires too much thought to play that lightly, right? And this is the issue with the Napoleonic stuff, especially. All that combined arms issue, and it's good, so some of it ends up artificial and incorrect. But my artillery here has been really effective at busting and pushing the Austrians back, and now there's just cav there for the most part. I want to bring Friant's Guard up, but these light cav, because of their extended range, I can't get even close to them without a risk of them countercharging. Okay, well that's fine. I have Nansudi here, actually, with a bunch of cav. But he's a little too far away to charge most of this stuff. There's cav in the forest, which comes to numbers mostly. I might be able to get my heavy cav there, but that's complex. So cav has a 4 movement. So that 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be 11 movement. I can't do a charge there. Just having a lot of difficulty trying to figure out a way that I can open up enough space that I can get my guard infantry up there. Now, I'm guessing it could just take the attack of the light cav in column and see what happens, but that seems painful. At the same time, I have to extricate these guys a little bit, try to figure out how to be in a better position to deal. Doing cav charges against the woods doesn't make a lot of sense, but I might have to. And it's just balancing and interweaving all of these decisions. And the cav is the decision that has to be made first in this game. It's just a little too much for me to do after a few days off. I feel like it's going to take me about an hour to get this turn, to kind of puzzle out everything in the turn. And I don't have that. I have maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So I guess maybe tomorrow. I got to tell you one thing with the orders, and I know I've raised this before in this system. The lack of hex numbers with written orders is a horrible combination. The only way it works is if there's lots and lots of named terrain features. And maybe there were in some of the earlier ones. There sure aren't here. There's like Hanau, Neuhof, some stuff down here that you're not going to deal with much. Rivers. But this is why you have the setup instructions that you do, at the same level as bridge and stuff like that. Oh, God. This one at least has a few noted locations. But what it means is the battle is determined, the orders are going to be written based on those, because there's just nothing else that you can operate off of. Hex numbers would make a whole lot of sense. I find it astonishing that, like, a written orders game can exist without the hex numbers. It just lays such an incredible burden. Now, written orders are not a requirement for this system by any means, but they're sort of the special sauce on it, right? All this configuration and everything. To me, the big shining point is, well, this is the game other than NBS that actually handles written orders in Napoleonics. And NBS has so few games, and this one's still alive. But I just cannot believe the decision not to use numbers. One of the things, I'm giving this another crack this morning, see if I ended up not having to go to the dentist, but wasting the rest of yesterday instead of playing. One of the things that this system, and really, a number of them, feels like it's too painful. My expectations with the order systems are you should be following the orders, right? You should be trying to do the thing that you've got written to try to do. You've got to be making some progress towards it each turn. So if Freon doesn't move forward, then yeah, to some extent I've got a little bit of flexibility. I could wait up and form up my units for the attack, stuff like that. But if I'm not doing anything whatsoever, I fail at my order, right? I am not following my order anymore. That strips you of a little bit, and this is something orders just does, a little bit of tactical flexibility that you'd kind of like, right? But it gets worse than that, because with the cav interactions, the fact that I can't just advance until the cav clears the way, is that a reasonable excuse? It feels like it should be, but it's a mindset I'm not used to from like the CWB type stuff, where you tell infantry to go take stuff, it goes and tries to take it. There's nothing complex there. What I have to get into my head is the appropriate mindset to be able to handle these orders here, and to give myself a little bit more slack, maybe, to not be charging forward. But it's not just the written orders that are problematic in this. If you look back to something like the musket and pike system, you have the same kind of thing. If you're dependent on like a cav unit to do something, and you're activating an infantry unit that has orders to move forward, you got to stop that infantry unit. But that's a little different. That feels more like a momentum type of thing than, trying to accomplish a set of written orders. So I don't know. These damn 2-hex ranges on the light cav that's causing problems. I'm beginning to think that's just a problem rule. It just eats up too much of the map so that I can't do anything. I can't move forward with the hopes of falling into square. I can't move my cav forward and position them quite how I want to without the possibility of being countercharged. That is just constantly becoming the bane in this game. And I don't know. Half a turn out of the way, the masked battery is doing its job. It's blowing holes in the enemy line, but I still don't feel like I can pursue the battle as I wrote it. I'm pulling units forward for Freon. These guys are really my problem. They're shielded from the artillery, and I mean, I guess I could cav charge them, especially with this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nope. Still can't. Still too far away. I can cav charge them with this and force them, to countercharge, and that may or may not weaken them, but it'll bring them out in the open where my other cav could hit them. So, anyway, that's half a turn that I've gotten out of the way. These guys, they are causing their issues, and I feel too exhausted trying to do half a turn with very few pieces on the board. Yeah, for whatever reason. Maybe I'm just getting too old. It's a little more common across rules writing games is, not rules, orders writing games, not written movement plot type things. They have their own totally different series of problems. But so last half turn I sent Napoleon off to go give orders to Druid. This is the most efficient and convenient means to give orders. Just walk up to somebody and say, hey buddy, why don't you do this instead? And I'm going to give him orders to inch his artillery up. That's the intention. But because I walk away and whatnot, when I do that kind of orders issuing, by the time I get up here and think again, it may not be capable of figuring out what I'm doing. So I've got De Reed here with Lamont. I don't know why he's there. It's been several days since I've been away. Obviously in the system, the leaders can write orders and send them off places. That's also got its issues because in this, unlike in the CWB system where you write down an arrival time, and I am copying that, but if you play this by its actual system, you've got little, I think these guys, no, those are just replacements here. You're supposed to have a little dispatch counter on the board for each of your orders, and they don't track as well as, hey, when will it take to get there? It's a more accurate situation because it handles a leader trying to reach an order, trying to reach a moving force, which might add or subtract from the amount of time taken. But I actually kind of like the abstraction better. So, especially in a game that doesn't have it. But yeah, now I have to figure out what the fuck De Reed was planning on using as an order for Lamont. I think it's to try to engage the guns. Western side of the turn, the Cav tried to pull back a little bit more, but that artillery fire is just destroying it. As well as anything that Lamont had kind of facing it over here. It's just, the guns are too potent. Over here, though, we're doing a pretty good job on McDonald. And meanwhile, a lot of forces aren't engaged in this case here, and Hanau, or the fake Hanau. Hanau doesn't, neither one has orders to go further than they are. I don't really know if Lamont had the orders to do what he's doing over there, or if those are even his troops. It's really hard to distinguish who owns what in this sort of multinational. One commander has different colored units and stuff. It's just disturbing. I understand that they want to show the nationality of the units very, very well. I understand the desire, to clearly distinguish that. Unfortunately, it counters any capability to like show, hey, this is a unit of this command. The French aren't in much better shape, though. It's just these counters for this system, or maybe again, maybe my age and my cantankerousness is making it harder and harder to identify. Yes, that's this command. I don't know. Anyway, that is the end. We had a rally back here. Some guns recovered, which I have to remember because they're definitely shot up. Yeah, I think that's all I do this morning. Well, the most effective facet I have for the French is this artillery battery, and I'm just rotating it about, trying to get rid of the cav that way as I inch Friant forward, because there's not a hell of a lot I can do about that. I probably ought to move Nappy somewhere. Victor's orders are completely out of line right now. So let's go risk our life over there. We're not really at risk. The Austrians don't, or the Bavarians don't have enough firepower to do any damage at all, much less the 2 hits that they'd have to. Wasn't terribly effective this time. McDonald's force is disintegrating. Not anything I can do about it. Some of this feels like a handcuffing of the orders, right? So some of the orders that I've written are not working well together. So I've got Victor with orders once Friant joins battle. Well, Friant's having trouble finding his way to the battle. He can't move forward because he'll get charged without a chance to go into square. I moved some of Nansuti's heavier cav up. I guess I have to make a shot at this if the artillery doesn't manage to clear it away. I got like 1 gun that can hit that, because the arcs of fire are more limited in this than, when you're facing a hex side with 3 frontal hexes being your arc. Instead, it's 2 frontal hexes. To move against the guns in line instead of column. It's an interesting choice, a hard call. If you're in line, you have a pretty good chance of being able to wipe steps off of guns, which can reduce them quite a bit. If this is only a 2-step gun, so that's not a bad choice. However, they melted under the fire of those guns, the grape shot, whatever. I could have charged up in column. I would have melted anyway. But yeah, so it didn't make too much difference. You have better morale. Better morale? No. You have a better melee shot against the guns, and these actually have some infantry backing them up, for what that's worth, which probably meant charging the guns wouldn't have been as effective. If I could get into a position where I could just charge these guns up here that have no infantry behind them, that would be very effective. We eliminated the McDonald unit. We're seeing the dead here accumulating, and I just don't feel like I'm fighting a battle. I feel like I'm fighting a bombardment type situation and just routing these Bavarians. I don't remember this system feeling this quirky before. I've looked up a few things that I thought maybe I got wrong, and there's some little things. The big rout at Jena probably shouldn't have been as extreme as it was. There would have been stopping points with villages, etc., that I wasn't accounting for. So that, which I found kind of exciting to see, was a no-go. But here we're seeing, the force is disintegrating. One thing I got no idea of is how many hits I've got against either side. I don't have a reasonable counter. All I can do is try to count the hits accumulated on the sheet. In our stat, I was tracking the damage through a different mechanism, but this uses the standard rules mechanism, which is by individual losses. And there really is not component support to handle that kind of thing. Much rather, I like sort of the individual commands having their own separate morale level, which is much easier to view, etc. That's a system that the NBS uses. I heard somebody commented that they use something like that all across the board, a course level demoralization. It certainly would be a hell of a lot easier to keep track of than trying to guess, hey, have I wiped out, 40 strength points or something? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not going to count because I don't know. I don't think so. Anyway, it's a beautiful, beautiful fucking day out. I went out and tried to do a little bit of yard work, and my ankle is just not supporting me on the hill today. So I don't know. Maybe I'll hit a walk or something. Who knows?